Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Contact Lost, where we continue the LGT coverage and the theme of national champions. So today we will have Pearce representing Ireland. Hello.
How's it going, folks?
And we've got Innes representing Scotland.
You guys, thank you so much for having me.
A pleasure to have you on, as always. Before we go in, a massive thank you to our sponsors, the Army Painter and Weyland-Yutani, as well as our community of patrons and YouTube members. Right, guys. So you hyped for the LGT?
Always. It's the one event I always seem to do terribly at every year, so can't wait.
Time to break the curse, isn't it?
Yeah, fingers crossed. I have a very real pattern in my results. I went 5-0, 4-1, 3-2, 4-1. So 5-0, it's like we're staircasing it back up. That's the goal for the
Should
main
be
event.
5-0 now, yeah. Fingers crossed it happens. What about you, Pierce? What's your history at the LGT?
So it was my first LGT last year. I brought Death Guard and Plague Marines before a lot of people were taking them, which is a lot of fun. As you ran across the table with your 5-inch movement. That was a fantastic experience. Like the scale of LGT it's been the biggest singles tour I've ever been to. I think it was like 700 players last year, and sort of kind of blown away by that. And I hear it's bigger this year, so since it's close enough to home, easy flight over from Dublin. Quite excited for it. So.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really come much bigger than that. Your only alternative is LVO, pretty much, right? And this time it's might be bigger than the one
It might
across
be,
the
yeah.
pond.
Yeah,
And
I did LVO 2 years ago. It's very, very interesting scope of event as well, where having one closer to home, I've done 4 LGTs with my fifth. I've only done one LVO. It's a little bit further to go, as Pierce said.
yeah,
Not quite as far a hop.
it's not cheap for us to go over and play in a casino, right? Like whereas London, I mean, London is London, but it's still much easier for us to get there.
Yeah, it's far enough outside London that there's not a casino next to it, which also helps with the price of the travel as well.
Yeah, money doesn't randomly just get lost, right?
It depends how much your
Uh,
Uber is.
yeah, true that. Right, so what about the Invitational? Enes, you've played a few of them as well, and the formula's changed this year again, so any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I've played the Invitational every year that I've been to LGT. So I think I'm 4 in now, and every year it's been a different format. So I'm used to it being very, very different. Yes, obviously, I won last year's one, which is it's good to get back and represent. I was hoping we would see a repeat of the format, but sadly not. The one that gave you a chance to lose a game and still win it was very, very nice. Didn't end up needing it, but it would have been nice. It's nice to have that safety net. But for this year, it just being a straight run, 8 players, single elimination. Do your best, represent your country. Like, what's not to love, right? It guarantees 3 really solid games before you go into LGT, and you get fed back into the random pool of everybody afterwards. You're like, I've just played 3 games against Sacco, Pearce, and Liam VSL. How could possibly anybody challenge me? And I'll lose game 1 again, and don't worry about it. But yeah, no, it's going to be really awesome to just like launch straight in with a bunch of incredible players and know that you're going to get three really, really great games against some of the best representatives of their countries in Cal Grande.
Ooh, it took a lot longer for Cal to throw shade when I interviewed him, so nice.
I think we were 3.5 minutes in. It was time to start.
Yeah. Innes only has one setting, which is maximum shade at all times.
Look, Kyle and I have been arguing on Reddit enough recently. We can do it in person a little bit too.
Oh, definitely, definitely, and we're here for it. And are you considering taking different lists, both the invitational and the main event again, or not necessarily, or you don't want to say top secret classified information?
For me right now, so I did the same thing for War Masters and LGT this year of playing a different list for both of them because it's really easy to get burned out on playing the same list and just kind of fall into doing the same thing over and over again. And the worst thing you can have is you can play the event with one list and discover you don't like it halfway through. Whereas at least you can delay that process a little bit by playing a different list for each one. And then there's also the side of like, not giving people discovery on your list. If I want to win both events, going through Liam on both of them is a fairly reasonable outcome. Giving him the chance to reset and try it again if I beat him the first time isn't exactly where I want him to be. So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of burnout side of things. If I'm looking at playing something like Genestealer Cults or Deathwing Knights or something like that, they're lists that are very slow and grindy, and I don't necessarily want to play 13 games with the same thing at that point of that kind of pace. Whereas if I was playing something, and if I was going to play something like a Cursed Cultist Sword, the idea of playing 13 games with that just emotionally has already drained me. So it's very likely that I will play different lists for both of them, but it's not guaranteed. It depends if I find something that I'm really gelling with, or if I'm kind of back and forth on something. There's also the both of them are just true undefeated tournaments, so you don't have to get into that headset of, oh, I need fast wins, right, or I need big wins. I don't need blowouts. It's okay to play a list that gets grindy wins, but the idea of doing that for 10 rounds in the singles is miserable and painful. I would like nice to get some easy games in there. So different formats, different outcomes for both of them, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Okay. An interesting take. Pearce, is that something that you would consider as well, or just too much minis to pack?
Yeah, so the consideration for me is what my luggage can take, because I'll be flying over on the Thursday and I'll just be going straight from the office. So it's a case of what I can bring with me into the office and then go straight to the airport with. So it'll likely be just the same army for the Invitational and play it for the main event. And I'm backing myself, but I'm also not booked off the Monday from work. So at the same time, I will be flying back on Sunday evening. So I only have to play 8 games. I don't have to consider playing 13 games.
Based on my past results, neither do I, mate. So I wouldn't worry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I want to bring something that's fun. I also want to bring something that's not like a head wrecker to play. So I played Thousand Suns for WTC, and in the build up to WTC, I think I had about 50 games of that army. And I'm normally a very fast player. Well, not as fast as Innis, but I'm quite a fast player in general. And Thousand Suns, I found, were always taking me, even with 2-hour rounds of WTC, I was always finishing my games with like 5-10 minutes left on the clock. And that was that's too close to view. So if I'm playing it with a much shorter time round at LGT, I think I want to play an army that I can get through the game and have time to plan out, even when I'm a little bit tired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the last kind of thing with the Invitational is it's meant to be a show match, right? Like as much as anything else, bringing something a bit wild and out there and a bit more fun that I maybe wouldn't take with the intent of trying to win like 10 games in a row with. There's a little bit of that as well. I can bring something a bit flashier, make it do it for the content, right? Like that would be a bit of fun.
Yeah. It's not about winning just the invitation. It's about winning the hearts of the people and winning the meme war, right?
Exactly. Which means I'm just gonna take Grundy's most recent tournament list and just do better than him with it. Wouldn't that be I am not going to do that. I don't hate myself enough to play Tau. But...
Yeah, I can't imagine you enjoyed Tau that much. Yeah, I'm tempted to bring the Lion for that reason, just because, he's a good dude.
Yeah, you could fit 2,400 points in your case, right? You bring a 2,000 point list, and then you bring the Lion to play in the Invitational.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a Dark Angel army is very compact. I mean, you got your Deathwing Knights, you've got Azrael, you got some Eradicators, then you're pretty done. Like, it writes itself.
You fit it in a shoebox, honestly.
Exactly.
You can fit that in your hand luggage.
Yeah, in a plastic bag. Just take it in your hand. That's also an option, right? And Pearce, what have you been up to after the WTC then? Did you take like a break from 40K, or was it straight back to the grind?
No, I took a break. I played in did a bit of Middle Earth strategy battle game over visiting a mate of mine in Edinburgh, and had a bit of fun with that. I brought a bit of a meme list, and it turned out to be a meme and get absolutely smashed in the face. It turned in Lord of the Rings, just don't want to go to tangent about Lord of the Rings, but objective control is determined by just the number of models you have. There's no OC or anything. So my army had 6 models, and the standard for the points level we were playing is like 40 to 50 models. And the games end in Lord of the Rings when you're at 25%. So if you start doing the math, you very quickly realize that no matter when the game ends, my 6 models can never win the game. But I'm getting back into 40K now. I'm currently, this was delivered to my house. So I've been hobbying this and getting the sculpts ready and getting some work done on those. They're very nice. The new hero figures for the Blade have kind of grown on me. I didn't really like them when they were previewed, but they're really nice now, having them kind of in the hand, seeing them personally.
Yeah, but you can't really play them, right? At the OGT at least.
No, exactly. I'm kind of
a limbo.
Yeah, I'm happy with that as well, because as someone who has modeled 20 Power Fist and Infernal Pistol Death Company, and never got to use them because I was our team's 1,000 Sun player, so I had to give them to our team's Blood Angel player. I'm kind of like tempted to bring them just for that alone, so I actually get to play a tournament with them.
You could use new base size Lamartis. They'll get that 40mm in that squad for some extra.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Of
course, of course. And Astorath, right?
You would use new Lamartis and old Astorath. New Astorath's too tall if you want to hide in the UTC.
True. See, I haven't thought about this enough yet.
You need to model for advantage more. What are we doing? Come on.
Yeah, that reminds me of one game last year that was on stream where one guy who was playing World Eaters had a beautiful army, but he gave his Invocatus like a banner that made like 3 inches higher, and yeah.
Was this on War Games Live last year? Was it?
Yeah.
I think that was Dara. He's a mate of mine. He does the Red Path. I'm pretty sure that was probably, if it was a gorgeous World Eaters army, odds are it was his, because he is a phenomenal painter.
It was great, but modeling for disadvantage for sure. And Innes, what about you? What have you been up to after WTC? I think you've been grinding a bit, right?
Yeah,
Got some tournament wins.
The fun never stops on my end. I've done a few events since WTC. The big one, I did the Hellstorm All Stars with Gene Circuits, which was super awesome. I managed to go 7-0 at that. Playing game 4 today with Gene Circuits is enough to melt anybody's brain. But it was definitely an interesting one. So yeah, wrap that up. Doing a bit otherwise, and then I'm off to Dallas. We're recording this on Wednesday the 11th. So on Wednesday the 18th, I leave for my grand trip. I'm traveling to London, dropping off like clothes and alternative armies for LGT at Brian Sipes. Then flying to Dallas on the Thursday, flying back from Dallas on the Monday, and then staying with Brian for 4 days before LGT. And we'll just be prepping and working and doing all that good stuff. Then the Invitational. So it's I'm taking effectively 2 weeks off. I have like a couple of days of work in the middle when I get back off my laptop. But yeah, I'll be doing Dallas for the Frontline Gaming Champions Cup and then LGT Invitational within like a week of each other. But I'm also like, that event is like, our team is so great. It's me, Anthony, Typhus and Pumba from Team Poland, Liam VSL, John Lennon. It's just going to be a great event out in Dallas. And then Liam's flying back as well and like crashing with us. And we've got Leisure from Team Poland staying at Brian's as well for the LGT. So it's just going to be all awesome 40k players all the time for the next couple of weeks after that as well.
That sounds like a good plan. And going more into the event itself. So how do you prepare for such a singles event? Like in terms of faction pick, for example, would you go for armies that are underdogs, something to counter the meta, or just go with like strong meta picks? Pearce, what's your preference?
So I think it's something that you need to be comfortable with, and WTC is more about like skews and team play, and you can kind of, bank on like pairings to give yourself advantages or, play around certain things. But in a singles environment with a field as diverse as the LGT and as large as the LGT, like 900 players, you can't really count on certain opponents. It's a bit more of a crapshoot in what you can face into. So it helps to bring a more balanced army, and that kind of influences my faction choice a lot. Like, does it have answers to stuff like uppy downy armies? Does it have answers to 1,000 Suns? Does it have answers to high melee pressure? And then is it a fast army to play the mission well? And that sort of starts whittling down the options. Like, I'm mainly a Death Guard player, but for me, I feel Death Guard suffers somewhat in this format when you can't really ensure what you're playing into. You want to give something that gives you the tools to play the mission consistently. And I feel kind of Death Guard lose on that one a bit. T-Suns are a strong army, but, they are the meta kind of boogeyman along with Sisters. So everyone, the top players you're going to run into are going to plan for that. And do you kind of build with that in mind and just accept that? Or do you kind of say, I'll leave them at home and take something that's kind of more consistently reliable, like a Dark Angels or perhaps, Blood Angels or something like that?
Okay. And Innes, what's your take?
Yeah, much of the same kind of vein as Pearce, right? You have like the level 0 conversation, which is all the things that are the best in the meta game right now, which is, right now I would say 1,000 Suns, Deathwing Knights, Hypercrypt, and Bringers of Flame Sisters of Battle are like kind of the 4 meta boogeymen that I'm always considering. Like, any list I bring needs to have answers for at least 3 of the 4 of them and a solid game plan for like, how do I try to high roll my way out of the 4th that, I ideally will know better than my opponent, right? Like, that's kind of one of the things. So it's like picking which of the ones you're going to be bad into, making sure you're repped into it. If you have to be bad into any of them, obviously some lists are just good into everything. If you can find that, your congratulations on finding the white elephant that will win LGT. Then you kind of get into the conversation of, okay, what plays into those? Do I have answers for those, right? Like, what's the next tier of that? And then you have all the stuff that like like you're always going to play against, Blood Angels is going to be, there's always going to be Blood Angels players. There's always going to be, Knight players, right? Do you have a list that just existentially can't play Chaos Knights, right? And it's just running through that checkbox against all of the meta, playing the boards, playing the terrain, and then, having something you're comfortable with, ideally, but at a certain level, you kind of hit the point where comfort is less important than having something that has answers to the metagame. Like right now, I would not be jamming up my Tyranids, right? I played a ton of Tyranids. I played them for WTC. I've played, a couple hundred games of Tyranids in the last 6 months. I'm still not going to play them for LGT because I just don't feel like there is enough room to play myself out of some of the situations that I think the meta is going to put me in. And my comfort is like, I'm at the point now where my comfort on a faction is less important than the faction being good, right? Which isn't the case for everybody. I think for a lot of people, if your goal is to go 4-1 or even 5-0, just like being comfortable with your faction. But if you're really trying to squeak out that advantage against the best players in the world, you probably need to be playing something that at least that you have to set yourself up the best for success, which means micromanaging that last 7 points of your list. And hating yourself every step of doing it while also telling everybody to stop doing that because it's not going to help them at the level they're at. So it's a weird little like spinning in yourself spiral. So a lot of talking to other good players and kind of figuring out where they're at, identifying the field. But with, you're only going to play 10 games and there's 800 players in the room. There's no point planning for any one specific person because, very real odds they just lose before they play you or you lose before they play them. You're better just prepping for the field at this kind of event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, given there's so many people, right? And the pairings are obviously super random. How do you motivate yourself to go when there's always the risk that you'll just end up playing a game that you can't win, essentially?
I mean, there's no game you can't win, right? It's just you got to find the out. You got to make sure you're bringing a list that you have faith in that it can do something in that situation. How do you motivate yourself? Well, you want to be that scary person to the other 799 players in the room. You got to be like, man, I just hope I don't draw Ennis, and that's I always aspire to be the guy that they're scared to pair, not the guy that's scared of pairing someone. You're going to have to go through everybody if you want to win a tournament, whether it's indirectly or indirectly. There's no point being worried about that. And if you want to be the best, you're going to have to beat the best. That's, the problem and the grand solution of playing in open format tournaments, right?
Pearce, what's your words?
No, I agree. And I think the problem, if this is something you're worried about, it starts with list construction. The best advice I ever got when I got into 40K competitively for the first time is a mate of mine, Pearce Corden. He said he was kind of teaching me to be a more competitive player, and his view was your lists are too fair. To a good list in 40K is always doing something really unfair for your opponent, and I've kind of taken that to heart ever since. And that's like back in like 2015. I think that's just a really important thing is when you can write these lists that can like counter all these different things, but I think your list also needs to fundamentally do something unfair. And when you approach a feel like this, you approach it with the idea, my list is going to do this that's unfair and also be able to do these other things and play against these other armies. And as it says, play to your outs. I like in card games, I'm a big fan of card games like Hearthstone. And in Hearthstone, sometimes you just have to hope you draw the top card off your deck that will like be the board clear you need to deal with your opponent's stuff.
Look, I will always, it's always, I would rather be better be good than lucky, but I'm never going to turn down being lucky.
Yeah. When the luck falls your way, it's a great feeling.
Yeah,
sometimes you just need it. Right.
That's when you break out my favorite line at that point, which I learned from Brian, which is, you get the luck your way and you turn to your opponent and you go, man, 40K is so easy.
I think the current one that everybody uses is skill issue, Pearce.
It's skill issue. I'm partial to skill issue as well, but 40K is easy has just the maximum. It's devastating wounds on your psychological damage to your opponent.
Yeah, it's banging the 6/6 charge and going, man, this game's so difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody doesn't just do this.
Yeah, and then you watch your opponent crumble internally, their eyes sort of glaze over, going, is this happening right now?
It's the best.
Do you guys have any tips for people that might be attending such an event for the first time with so many players in the room? Ines, anything?
Yeah, there's like one off the table tip and one on the table tip. On the table, you are playing at a tournament of 800 people that are pulled from every segment of the 40K population. This event is big enough that it draws in people who've never been to a tournament before and people who go to every tournament on the planet. The people you play against are going to be from such a diverse pool of people that there is a very real chance that you do significantly better or significantly worse than you should based on your other results, based on almost no fault of your own. Somebody's got to play, somebody's got to play Liam VSL round one. It might be you. And then somebody is going to go 4-0 while playing nobody that has ever played a tournament before, because there is just enough of people in the room that will do that. Do not tie your personal, do your best not to tie your personal value to how well you do at events like this, because they are inherently quite random, more so than any other 32 to 100 person GT is going to be. There is just too much stratification in the room. Do your best to have a good time regardless, and don't go in with a results-based analysis here. You are going to play harder games or easier games than you expect based on nothing to do with where you're currently at in the tournament. And hydrate significantly more than you think you would, especially if this is your first event. Hydrate and sit down more. Just sit down at your table. It's so easy to want to stand up all the time and to forget to drink water at these tournaments. These events are long. They are big. There is going to be long queues. If you have dead time, go and sit down. Go and have a drink. Take care of yourself. It is really, really easy to forget to do that when you get caught up in the energy of there being 1,000 people in the hall and massive queues for the water in the toilets. Just take care of yourself and make sure you're doing it before it becomes a problem, not after.
Pearce, anything you want to add?
Yeah, the other thing I'll say is, in such a big hall of people, you have, the inevitable, the round gets announced and you're playing on, 400 tables. You go from table 300 at the back of the hall to table 50 up the front of the hall. Having some sort of army tray, you can bring your army up on kind of conveniently, because there's nothing worse feeling than packing away all your stuff, bring it to your new table, having to unpack it again really quickly, also set up a board and then run through all the pre-game amble, and the round has already started. It also helps in that front, the app is fantastic, I find, for 40K, the GW official app. It just makes accessing your rules so much easier, and it speeds up the game far quicker. So if you're not using it already, just have your list on that, ready to go, or have data cards in front of you. Anything that helps you reference your rules, because again, by the time you get to your table, time you set up, you have the pleasantries with your opponent, set up the table and everything, you're already eating quite substantially into the round time available to you. So having things that just streamline that process make it much easier. And also just bringing snacks to your table, having water there already, like a big bottle of water before the event, you can fill it up between rounds. That sort of stuff goes a long way, just keeping you energized.
Oh yeah, one last one as well. The event hall is really, really, really loud. You will probably not be used to that, even if you've been at 40K rooms before. There are literally 1,000 people in that room because there are more game systems than 40K. It is the loudest event you will ever attend, unless you go to LVO. Be aware of that. Your voice is gonna suck at the end of game 3. You're gonna have been shouting across the table at your opponent, lozenges, whatever you got to do. Just take care of yourself at the tournament. It's super easy to get caught up in the I'm playing big 40K, but it's a very, very draining experience. You see the Monday after every tournament like this, there's always oh my god, I am so ill, I've caught con crud, oh my god, my voice is gone, I have COVID, whatever, right? There is always something going wrong for 250 to 1,000 people after these tournaments. Do your best. Really, you need to take care of yourself at these things, and you need to actively make an effort to it more than you do at smaller events.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's always worth highlighting that people might laugh at the 40K players being nerds, but it actually is. There is a little bit of physicality involved as well as standing for 10 hours a day. It's not as easy as it might seem. So yeah, hydration is key. Right,
We're all built
Pearce,
like
do you
golf
have any?
players. Act like it.
Yeah, I'll say I played 3 events for. I played NEO, Warmaster, and WTC while on crutches and wearing a kind of foam boot. Let me tell you, I felt exhausted on the Monday when I got home.
Yeah, have you still got that boot, or are you okay now?
I do, but I'm out of the boot, and I'm also disappointed I'm out the boot in a way, because it would have been really nice to have an accessible table at LGT, so I didn't have to walk through the hall. But now I've got to use my legs like a sucker.
We can break your leg on the Friday again. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll find another seagull.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Don't they have any more seagulls in Dublin that you can just randomly use to get that accessible table? Nonetheless, Pearce, have you got any then ambitions or expectations in terms of results? Something you want to achieve, you're shooting at, or it's just it will be what it will be?
I always go to events with the mindset it will be what it will be, because it's fundamentally a dice game, and also to do well at events, you have to be playing really well, have a bit of the dice on your side, and the pairings kind of fall your way with the mission and stuff as well. that said, my personal goal, I like to do as well as I did last year at LGT, which is go 4-1. If I don't, I don't. But if I can go 4-1 again or do better, I'd be very happy with that.
Okay, that's sound. Ines, what about you? Are you happy with the 5-0 you're now expecting,
Well,
given past history,
yeah,
or?
every year at LGT is super different. I have, you know, the first year I went, I 5-0'd, finished fourth. The second year I went 4-1, I lost in round five. The third year I lost round one and round three and had a miserable day two where I was playing on like the table 300 and something. LGT is such a variable tournament that it's really difficult to go in. But I also know that I'm playing some of the best work I've ever played in my life right now. I'm feeling confident. I'm feeling pretty good right now. So I'll be disappointed with anything outside of the top cut. Frankly, I'll be disappointed with anything outside of first because that's just kind of where I am at right now. But I think all my submission I put in is to do as well as I can, make sure I hit the top cut, and to score more RTC points than Grundy. And that's really the big ones for me right now. Is and Josh if he's there. I actually don't know if Josh is going or not. But I'm pushing for number one in the ITC this year. That's the goal. So as many ITC points as I can scrape out of this tournament between this and Alvio is the goal, right? So
Okay, so maybe you know the algorithm because I spoke with Kyle yesterday, and okay, no one will
the
explain
algorithm
it to me.
the algorithm is completely hidden. It is not a publicly available algorithm.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
No, frontline don't reveal it so that people can't try to game it with like tournament construction because people used to be like, oh, we know that 7-round tournaments are worth more than like you could if you ran a 7-round tournament with 60 players, it was worth more than a 5-round tournament with 100 players and things like that. So people would like deliberately try to game the system and being like, well, we'll just play, we'll play 5 games day one and 3 games day two, and we'll do an Iron Man format with like 30 players, and it'd be worth more ITC points than a super major because of the way the format was. So they removed the ability to know what it was. You can reconstruct it a little bit by like you can kind of plot like player size against and kind of get a feel for it, but it's always a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
fascinating as someone who has like no real view on the ITC scoring, but to see that people gamed it so significantly in the past is something else.
People will game anything that has prizes, right?
I guess, yeah.
Well, we had a ranking system that didn't really have prizes, and people also gamed it. So
Got to get those internet points, huh?
Look,
Oh
internet points are
yes,
the number one cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. Um, right, and Ines, actually, you're very much into the competitive scene. What do you value more, the ITC rankings or the ELO scoring?
I mean, I'm obligated to see the ELO because it's the stat check ELO, right? We run it. But right now I'm third in both, so it actually doesn't matter to me. They're both equivalently valuable right now. But generally, it's whichever one I'm doing better and is the more valuable at the time.
Makes
So we'll see
sense.
what happens after LGT. But in general, I think the ELO is a running thing, right? It's been tracking for 2 years now. ITC is a more like measure of
Seasonal.
seasonal, whereas the ELO is more a measure of like long term consistency. And if you're good at one, you're generally going to be good at the other. It's really difficult to be like really high in ELO and really high in ITC and not be a good player, and it's pretty difficult to be high in one without being high in the other. So it's the ELO will be there, and every ELO point I earn just now is going to be still valuable in 3 years' time. Whereas the ITC points are obviously only for right now, so it's really easy to be like, right now I am focusing on the ITC, and the ELO will happen as it happens. So that's probably where I'm at right now. It's also easier to like for where I am like professionally, right, as a 40K coach, it's much better to be like, hey, I finished first in the ITC this year than to be like between this date and this date I was first in the ELO. No, you can't check, right? There, it's a lot harder to like use that as a like a
You
tool
can't
for
advertise with
growth.
it, essentially.
Yeah.
Not as much, at least. Right. Pierce, do you feel any sort of like pressure being chosen for the invitational going into the event? Are you feeling like the weight of the nation on your shoulders, that sort of vibe?
No, not at all. Like I'm flattered in a way to be invited to. I think it'd be good crack. Yeah, I do want to do well for Ireland. Obviously, we had a great run at WTC this year. I'd like to keep that gravy train going, and we have our outgoing captain Joe is going to represent us at Worlds this year. So if I could have a good run at LGT Invitational and Joe could have a good run at Worlds, that would be ideal. But if I didn't say, I wasn't feeling any pressure, the incoming captain Colin Power might just beat me over the head and say, "Yo, you should feel pressure. You should do well."
Like I'm feeling pressure for you. Like if you shit in the bed, I recommended you.
That's on you, pal. That's on you.
Yeah, I could have picked Ian. It was an option.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm ahead of Ian.
Well,
There
you
you
scored more
go.
points when we played than Ian did, so that was
Well,
the entire
that's
metric I went
fair.
with.
That's fair.
He got like double his score.
Yeah.
See, you don't need ITC rankings. You only need the Innis ranking. How
It's all
many
about
points
WTC.
you
It's all
get
about
out of the
WTC
game.
points scored. Yeah,
It
that's
is.
why Liam's the best. He's got significantly more than anyone else.
That's how you identify the team's players when they play singles as well. When they lose a game by like
That's like
2 or
it's a
3.
10-10.
Yeah, 2 or 3 points. Oh yeah, man, total 10-10. It's like, yeah, but you lost, right? No, yeah.
Don't mention it out loud.
We're all guilty of it. We're all
So
guilty of it.
I've lost three singles games so far this year, and they've all been 11-9s. So I don't feel too bad about it. But I did lose all 3 of them. I think one of them was a 10-10, but they are all losses on my ITC Battles app. So
Yikes. And Innes, what about you? Scotland, do you feel like you're representing the country at the event, or not so much?
I mean, at this point in where I am with 40k, I've been representing Scotland for a long time. It's kind of just part and parcel of me playing 40k at this point, right? I have been, I was the Scotland captain for the previous 4 years. I will assumedly be playing, hopefully be playing for them again this year. I went to Worlds for Scotland. I wear a kilt at tournaments in America because it's funny. I'll probably bring a kilt down for LGT to wear in the Invitational only. I won't wear it in the main event. It's far too breezy in that event hall with 500 people, with 1,000 people there. So yeah, like it's just part and parcel of me playing 40k right now, is being a member of the Scottish community and in a lot of senses a representative. So no, I'm always happy to be doing it, and it's never really anything I think about at this point in terms of like any kind of pressure. It just is a thing that I have done for years now, so it's hard to be like too burned out about it.
Okay, sure. And what's your take on the meta right now? Are you hoping for a data slate to quickly come and shake things up a bit in time for it to be played at the LGT, or are you happy with where it's at and just want to
I mean, they need to drop a
continue
data
with
slate in the
smooth
next
ride?
data slate in the next 2 days for it to be in for LGT, right?
Yeah, I
It's
think so.
almost never drop before the end of the month. If we were, and they like generally when Games Workshop are like, there's a slate this month, it's in the this month's previews article, and there wasn't one in the August one, so I wouldn't personally be expecting it in September. I don't have any inside information on that, but just like there has been no build up to it from GW, and generally they do have some amount of build up, so I'm not expecting it to come out before the start of October at this point.
I think rules cutoff is like the day before list submission, right? For the LGT. So if it's not out by the end of next week,
rules block, isn't it? Usually, I thought, but
I vaguely remember looking at the rules pack saying it was the day before. Now I could be wrong on that now, but yeah, I don't think it's going to come out in time anyway. I feel like famous last words.
Yeah, famous last words. You know what? If it comes out, I can't imagine GSC getting nerfed, and I'm feeling fairly confident I'll be playing them for the Invitational or the main event. At least one of the two they'll be showing up. I don't know which one yet. That's where we're still working on. But there's no way they get nerfed, right? So
yeah, I think we can confidently say if the slate comes out now, Deathwing Knights will not be as prevalent at LGT as they otherwise would have been.
well, look, the UK never plays Deathwing Knights anyway. They've not been popular like at all for the last few months. I'd be shocked if they were showing up in great numbers. What it is I would love a Curse Cultist to go in the bin and Bringers of Flame because I don't play them. So of course I want them to go in the bin. But I think the meta is pretty flat right now, and that does mean that there's like comfortably a lot of factions that could win LGT right now, which is good for a meta standpoint. I do think that it's really hard to not be one of those 10 armies. And there's not a lot of list diversity within some of them, which would be cool to see increased. But I'll be okay with the meta games on this because I doubt they're going to ban secret missions in the data slate, which is the only thing that I really want gone right now. So I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
No, I think they only just came in, so that would be weird to witness such a U-turn.
Yeah, they're slightly overtuned, I think, the secret missions. Like I like the idea in principle that keep games close, but it used to be going first obviously had a kind of natural advantage before Pariah and the Leviathan mission pack. And now going second has a huge tempo advantage. Your opponent has to come out and engage with you. Otherwise, you kind of just sit back and go, I'm going to score a secret mission later on. There's nothing you can do about it. And like innocent enough for the WTC, it's very frustrating trying to push scores when you're going first. And then your opponent's
going
going
first
to
into Hypercrypt has me want to pull my toenails out with rusty
Yeah.
pliers. Like it happened. I've gone like my last 8 games into Hypercrypt, I've gone first. And I'm just like, if I never had to do this again, it would be too soon.
Unfortunately, our Hypercrypt list at WTC went first 6 out of 7 games, which is not the ideal scenario.
What is it that you say? Skill issue, right?
Skill
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
40k is surprisingly difficult at times.
The really worrying thing is that when I look at my stats for Pernexes, I have like a 95% win rate going first and like a 72% win rate going second. So clearly I've not got the memo personally, but I'm going to blame that on playing a lot of practice games against Wolf Jail to try to like learn that matchup, and just like they keep going first against me and putting me in my deployment zone until turn 5. Unlikely to win that game. So I'm blaming it on that, but I don't think that's a entirely fair representative and might be one of those skill issues we were talking about.
Yeah. Right. So, guys, taking that into account, would you say that any faction can win the OGT? Anyone with anything can just come in and take it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, Imperial Agents for LGT 2024.
Look, if Side pulls it off, hell yeah. I think there's a very real like haves and have-nots in the metagame right now, where there are like 7 or 8 factions at the top of the metagame that I would be surprised if something that wasn't one of them won LGT, with those being like, off the top of my head, Sisters, Thousand Suns, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Outside Chance Black Templars, CSM a Curse list, and then like a few others. And then there are a few specific people on specific factions that I think could make a deep run and could win based off of that alone. So I think there are a few more outside of that, but you know, I'd be really shocked if Drakari won the event, or Eldar at this point, right? Unless it's Liam playing, right? Like things like that. There are a few people that if they were on their faction, I'd be like, yeah, cool, they could do it. But outside of that, I would generally be surprised if it was more than range. Necrons would be another one that I would say. But I think a Necron player that just went first 10 times could 100, or went second 10 times could 100% win LGT.
Yeah, it definitely, like I would love to see some really unique lists pop up. Like I think LGT last year, the unique sort of list that did pop up was the CSM hadn't really shown up a huge amount in the format with the like I know that WTC last year, like Sacco had that list with like the Chaos Lords and Chosen and Rhino, but that didn't really take off more so until LGT
they had the final form. And then obviously Manny had the card last year. Vanilla made the Shadow Realm with World Eaters, which was the first real outing of them as well at LGT last year.
Yeah, and like the Accursed list was only in its infancy then, because he had Abaddon on that list, and then we also saw the ever fun Team Ignite triple spinner Wraithguard list that came out, which was just, you know, everyone had a great time playing against that list.
Yeah, Nos on the double Wraithguard as well. Like there was a decent amount of innovation because we had just had a slate before September last year.
Exactly.
Which was exactly the big one where we won't have that this year. So we're more likely to be like the dying embers of a metagame than the birth of a new one at LGT, I think. Whereas I think this will be a lot more like what came out from, you know, the results of Nova and WTC more than anything else, right? Like, are we going to see people bringing Chaos Cults in mass numbers because actually won Nova with them? I significantly doubt it, but I wouldn't be shocked if Manny was on that, right? That's kind of where I land at with the metagame right now.
I'd still hope to see some like really kind of unusual lists. Now, having watched quite a few TTS games of folks going to LGT, I think the interesting one will be Guard. I've seen a lot of Guard being played, and they're sort of an army that hasn't seen a huge amount of attention right now.
I mean, France had them on their winning roster, right? With the 18 Bulgarin, Nas played them at WTC. There will be 18 Bulgarin in numbers.
Yeah, so I mean, they're I've been calling them submissive Deathwing Knights because they like to be told what to do. But like they are showing up a little bit amongst some of the top players, but I think Guard are sort of one of those factions kind of flying a little bit under the radar. And on these boards, they play really well because again, they're like Deathwing Knights, but they have, you know, a crap ton of shooting to back up that. Like in a Dark Angel list, you've got like the Eradicator brick, but when you've got like 4 or 5 Layman Russes sitting behind walls waiting for you to go out to deal with the Bulgrin, that is quite obnoxious to play against. Yeah. I would still love something really creative to come out of the woodwork by a top player and just like absolutely dash the competition.
Did I blow GSC too early?
Yeah, you may have shown your hand there. Unfortunately, I was thinking about the Invitational, going, man, because I was looking at Marines, going, man, I should just put 2x5 infiltrators in this list and say, fuck you, it is.
Oh man, it'd be amazing if infiltrators were any good against me. My army doesn't deep strike. What? Why would that help you?
It'll still make me feel good playing against GSC. I feel
Alright,
like I've got
okay.
my safety infiltrators. Even if they're not doing anything, they're
Yeah, dude,
here.
I promise the rock grinder in your deployment zone will do nothing bad to them. Honestly, infiltrators. What am I, hypercrypt? I'm insulted.
I mean, if they bring Grey Knights and Hypercrypt, you know, that one time that happens in a field that big,
Let's see
you're
what
like,
you,
yes!
what you should do, Pearce. All right, Sons of Sanguinius, 30 infiltrators with Phobos librarians.
Oh, be still my heart. Just deploy on the line, run at them and go, what are you going to do
What are you
about
gonna
it,
do,
pal?
Thousand Sons?
Yeah. Oh.
All right, so it looks like you guys have your list set, right? Then
Absolutely
Yeah,
not.
yeah. Phobos librarian, 30 infiltrators. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I will be repacking armies. I'm gonna take, like I said, I'm going to London. I'm gonna take like the army that I'm taking to Dallas, which is GSC, and then like 2 others with me, so that I can hot swap up until the list submission on the Sunday night. Maximum
Jeez,
stress.
that's a lot of luggage. Or at least
Yeah,
it
I'm going
sounds
on. I'm
like.
getting the train to London. It's only like 6 hours. It'll be fine. And then I'm just taking the one army to Dallas with me, so it won't be too bad. He said, last words.
Until it gets thrown out the plane. Hopefully not.
No, I'll be leaving it. I'm hand luggage only, and it's a BA and it's BA, so that's fine. And then I'm leaving all the other stuff at Brian. So no, it'll be fine. Nothing can get thrown out of the plane. Don't stress me out like that.
Yeah, I'm still
Okay.
mulling over what I'm going to take. So I have a few different armies of bouncing too, and then I have quite a few people taunting me to play Death Guard again. It's like, come on, you
should play
do it,
Liam's,
you coward.
Did you see Liam's castle list?
I did, but I am not a fan. I hate vehicle car parks historically. They just don't suit me at all as a
And
player.
you don't have big enough balls to play Mortarion, of course.
I played Mortari last year at LGT. Excuse me. See, he's just trying to get me to bring Death Guard now. He's trying to wind me up so I start taking Mortari.
And with Mortarion.
I'll bring the Lion. We can see who's the best Primarch.
Yeah. I somehow poor Morty.
We should talk to see if we can convince everybody at the event to bring a Primarch.
Well, what you get then is like 7 Magnus the Reds and then like 1 Lion or something.
Yeah, but you feel really smart having the Lion for that dev wind protection.
This is true.
Okay, right. Guys, thanks very much for coming in. That was a fun one. And best of luck at the event. We will see you there. And a massive thank you to our sponsors, Weyland-Yutani and the Army Painter, as well as our community of patrons and YouTube members. For now, we're signing off. Our guests today were Pearce and Ines. Thanks again for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And
thank you.
Bye-bye.